Hello friends, I welcome all of you to this active learning video lecture communication session. Myself Sachin Sharma. Currently I am working as an assistant professor and PhD scholar at SUBIT Gandhinagar College. Today we are going to cover some of the topics related to electrostatics and capacitance. Topics that I am going to cover that will be related to first electrostatics. Then what do you mean by electric charge and the properties of electric charge? Why are capacitors important? Basics of capacitor. Energy storage in a capacitor. Then charging of a capacitor, discharging of a capacitor. How to increase the total voltage and total charge of series of capacitors. That will be the operation of series and parallel combinations. And then different types of capacitors that we are using. In different applications of capacitor. I will try to explain some of the applications, and then we will try to solve some examples. Finally, I am having one software, that is simulation software, and we will be simulating some combinations, some circuits actually, that will be including different components like resistors, capacitors. Okay, we should now we'll start with introduction. Okay, many of us will have encounter with this situation, like when I get shocks when I'm sitting or get up from the chair, and I haven't walked anywhere. Or what do you mean by, or why do we experience today's shocks? Okay, before answering the first question, we will move to next slide. What do you mean by electrostatics? Electrostatics, as the name implies, it is the study of stationary or slowly moving, that is without acceleration, electric charges. I can explain this phenomenon using an example. A rod of plastic rubbed with fur or a rod of glass rubbed with silk will attract small pieces of paper and is said to be electrically charged. Similarly, the charge on the plastic rubbed with fur is defined as negative, and the charge on glass rubbed with silk is defined as positive. Okay, now electrostatic phenomena arises from the forces that electrical charges exert on each other. Such forces are described by Coulomb's law. Even though electrostatically induced forces seem to be rather weak, the electrostatic force between, that is, an electron and a proton that together make an hydrogen atom, is about 40 orders of magnitude stronger than that gravitational force acting between them. Now somewhat about Coulomb's law. It gives the magnitude of the electrostatic force between the two charges, one having a positive charge, another having the negative charge. So the magnitude of the force will be given by K Q1 Q2 upon R square, where Q1 Q2 are the charges, R is the distance between them, and K is the proportional constant. Now we will see. So this is the diagram actually, showing two charges. One that is in red is a positive charge, and one that is in blue is negative charge, and the lines that we are seeing, that those are the electric field lines actually. Okay, now we'll move to the first slide that I showed earlier. Why do we experience static shocks? Okay, the answer is static electricity is generated whenever two materials are in contact with each other. All materials in universe are made of some electrical charges in material atoms. So in the universe there are equal amounts of negative and electrical charge and positive charge. That is, negative charge we can call as electrons and positive charge we can call as protons. This generally try to stay in balance of equal amounts at every location. However, when two materials are in contact, some of the charges redistribute by moving from one material to the other. This leaves an excess amount of positive charge on one material and an equal negative charge on the other. Okay, when the materials move apart, each takes its charge with it, so that there no problem is there. One material becomes charged positively and the other negatively. Okay, now if the materials are able to conduct electricity, that is, if they are purely conductors, right? So if the metals are able to conduct electricity, away the charges will dissipate and eventually recombine. In this case, the static electricity effects may be too small to be noticed. However, if the charges are separated faster than the material can dissipate them, then the amount of electrostatic charge builds up. So eventually a high voltage and the effects of static electricity may be noticed. Now the answer for the second question. What was the second question? Second question was, I get shocks when I am sitting or I get up from the chair and I haven't walked anywhere. Many of you would have encountered this situation in real life. So the answer for that second question is, whenever you sit in a chair, the contact between your clothes and the chair can generate a lot amount of electrostatic charge on your clothes. While you stay in contact with the chair, your body voltage stays low. If you lean forward, if you move backward or forward, so your back moves away from the chair back, or if you get up out of the chair, then you take the electrostatic charge with you. Now if your body voltage can rise, it can rise very rapidly to high voltage as the charge is separated from its counter charge on the chair. So that is the reason actually why we experience electrostatic shock, or when we sit in a chair and then again we move out of the chair. Okay, next we will see some properties about electric charge. What are electric charge and what are the important properties, characteristics of electric charge. Now as I said, we do have two charges in the sense we have positive charge and negative charge. So we say electron carries a negative charge and proton carries a positive charge. Okay, so the properties or characteristics of electric charge are: like charges, they repel one another, that is positive repels positive and negative repels negative. Unlike charges, attract each other, that is positive attracts negative. Okay, third important property is charge is conserved. Like energy is conserved, same way charge is also conserved. A neutral object has no net charge. That means if the plastic rod that I explained earlier, if the plastic rod and fur are initially neutral, when the rod becomes charged by the fur, a negative charge is transferred from the fur to the rod. The net negative charge on the rod is equal to the net positive charge on the fur. So if you see, the neutral object will have no charge actually. It will be neutral, so it will have no net charge. Okay. Apart from that, there are certain important things like in concern to electric charge. A conductor is a material through which electric charges can flow easily. Okay, and same way an insulator is a material through which electric charges do not move easily, if at all. Okay, now we will switch over to capacitors, but before understanding capacitors, those phenomenon of electrostatic comes directly for capacitors actually. So we should be now I think we are having some idea about electrostatic force, and then we can switch over to capacitor. Okay, before explaining what is capacitor, we should understand why capacitors are important. A capacitor can store energy, that is the behavior of a capacitor. So it is able to store energy. So with the help of that characteristics, capacitors are often found in power supplies. Apart from that, second important application of capacitor is a capacitor has a voltage that is proportional to the charge, that is the integral of the current, right, that is stored in capacitor. So capacitor can be used to perform interesting computations in operational amplifier circuits. Here that OPMP stands for operational amplifier. It is same as amplifier, but it is having another features which normal amplifier doesn't have. Like we can do mathematical operations like addition, subtraction, multiplication, divisions, integration, differentiation. All those operations can be done with the help of operational amplifier circuits, right? Okay, third important behavior or application of capacitor is it exhibits frequency dependent behavior, so that circuits can amplify certain frequencies selectively can be built. In other words, I can say that it can be used in filters. Different types of filters are there, like low pass, high pass, band pass, band reject filters. Capacitors can be used or generally used actually in filter circuits. Next we will see basics of capacitor. Okay, capacitor is an electrical device that has in DC circuits the purpose of storing energy. In particular, I can say it stores an electrical charge. Okay, if you see the picture at the bottom, I think you can see, right? Okay, the picture at the bottom says danger, warning is there, high voltage, right? It is printed on some large size capacitors. The picture at the bottom means to illustrate that touching a capacitor will certainly transfer a great deal of charge into our bodies. So we should take care while touching. What we should do is we should discharge capacitor before servicing. Okay, capacitor comes in the class of passive elements like resistors and inductors. Only difference is that both inductor and capacitor can store energy, whereas resistors dissipate power, right? Okay, next slide we will see. This is one diagram actually which illustrates a metal plates placed close to each other, but they are not touching. If you see there is a in between, there are two metal plates. One is having positive side, one is having positive charge, second is negative charge, and in between they are not touching. There is some gap actually. So we can say that this metal plates as an example of capacitor, because capacitor looks like same. It is these metal plates can behave as a capacitor. Okay, and then they are connected to a battery through a switch. Okay, now suppose two flat metal plates are placed close to each other, but they are not touching and are connected to a battery through a switch. What happens at that? At the instant the switch is closed, electrons are attracted from the upper plate to the positive terminal of the battery, and at the same number are repelled into the lower plate from the negative battery terminal. Okay, now enough electrons move into one plate and out of the other to make the voltage between them same as the voltage of the battery. Now if the switch is opened after the plates have been charged in this way, the top plate is left with a deficiency of electrons and the bottom plate with an excess. Since there is no current part between the two, the plates remain charged despite the fact that battery no longer is connected. Okay. Now next we will move to voltage current relationships in capacitors. If you see this conducting plate, this is capacitor. Right side you can see even plus minus, that is a symbol of electrical symbol of capacitor. This we can say this capacitor is a polarized because we have sign convention, positive and negative. Voltage across capacitor is represented by VC and the current passing through the capacitor is represented by IC of t. And if you see these two leads that are coming out of the conducting plate, we connect actually generally in this way only the capacitors. Those two leads will come out of the capacitor and then we will be connecting those in the PCB in for our application. In between, if you say that two conducting plates, the material, it is written dielectric. So dielectric is basically an insulator only, right? So when it is placed in electric field, when it is placed in electric field, it gets polarized. Okay. Now showing the relationship between voltage and current and voltage and charge in a capacitor. There is obvious a relationship between charge on a capacitor and the voltage across the capacitor. If you see, for most dielectric insulating materials, charge and voltage are linearly related. So we can say Q, that is charge on the plate, that will be equal to that constant C, and it will be multiplied with the voltage that we are applying across the plate. Okay. So we can say Q, that will be equal to CV, where C stands for constant and it is again known as the capacitance of the capacitor. Okay. Now what is the importance of capacitance? That symbol C that we saw in the last slide. The importance of that is the measure of capacitor's ability to store charge. Okay, a larger capacitance means that more charge can be stored. If you have seen, there are earlier machines, or you can see earlier companies, you will see large size capacitors. So those large size capacitor can store more charge. They will be having more capacitance, right? Again, capacitance is measured in farad. The dimension or the of capacitance, it is in farads actually. However, 1 farad, it is too large actually. So normally what they do is they use prefixes, they use multipliers actually to show the smaller values. So if you see a capacitor, they will be on the capacitor they will have a print of something like this kind. Micro means 10 raised to minus 6, that will be equal to 1000 into micro, that will be 1 farad. Nano means 10 raised to minus 9, again that will be equal to 1000 nanofarad, that will be equal to 1 microfarad. And then picofarad, that means 10 raised to minus 12, and again 1000 picofarad, that will be equal to 1 nanofarad. Okay. Now next we will switch to energy in capacitors. Before explaining how energy is stored in capacitors, it is important to understand why do we need to store energy. Okay, you count on the energy stored in your gas tank. If you drove a car to school or work today, that's an obvious case of energy storage. There are lots of other examples where energy is stored. Many of them are not as obvious as the gas tank in the gas. See next example. Okay, many of you will be reading this on a computer, and the computer keeps track of the date and the time. It does that by keeping a small part of the computer running when you think that the computer is turned off. There also we need a storage of energy. There is a small battery that stores the energy to keep the clock running when everything else is turned off. Okay, capacitors are often used to store energy in the situations. See, normally every time we don't want to use capacitors, but there are certain situations when we need capacitors to store energy, right? So those situations are when relatively small amounts of energy are needed, first. Second, where batteries are not desired because they might deteriorate. Next, for larger power short duration applications, as in power supply filters, or to keep power long enough for a computer to shut down gracefully when the line power fails. How to calculate? Next question is how to calculate the energy that is stored in capacitor. Okay, we will calculate by looking at the basic relationship between voltage and current in a capacitor. As we know the equation I of t, that will be equal to C dV by dt, right? Where if you know the equation of if you know the relation between current and charge, Q is equal to IT, right? So if you differentiate dQ by dt, that will become, right, current. So in that way we are doing so we will get this equation I of t, that will be equal to C dV by dt. Once we have this relationship, we can calculate the power, that is the rate of flow of energy into the capacitor. Now if you multiply the current flowing through the capacitor by the voltage across the capacitor, we will get power, that is P equal to VI, right? Now what we are doing is we are placing the value of IT that we calculated earlier in this equation of power. So we will get P of t, that will be equal to C dV by dt into V of t, right? Okay, now we can recognize that power is what? Power is simply the rate of energy input. So we can use power, that will be equal to dE by dt, where E stands for energy, that will be equal to same C dV by dt into V of t. Okay, if you want to calculate the total energy, if you want to calculate the total energy input, so what we have to do is we just have to take the derivative of the energy, right? That can be integrated. So what we are doing is we are integrating from 0 to t, and we are using this this constant, or we are using this variable, that is tau. So what we are doing is we are integrating this power equation, and that is 0 to t P of tau d tau. So placing this integration over this over the earlier equation, so we will get C integration of 0 to t. In integration side we will get C V of tau d by d tau V of tau d tau. So if we simplify simply by integration, if we know integration, we can get the equation of total energy input. We will get half V of t whole square into C minus half V of 0 whole square into C, where V of 0 stands for the initial voltage and V of t stands for the final voltage, right? Now if we assume that initial voltage is 0, there is no energy stored in the capacitor, we find that energy stored in a capacitor is proportional to the capacitance. That is, if you can see the equation, we can find that total energy stored in capacitor is directly proportional to the capacitance, and again proportional to the square of the voltage across the capacitor, where we can take half as a constant, right? This is an important relationship, or this is an important equation which shows the energy stored in a capacitor. Okay, now what is the phenomena of charging and discharging in capacitors? What happens when a capacitor is charging? How does charging really work, or how does it discharge? To help concentrate on this capacitor, we will assume that we will take one circuit and we will assume that the load is purely resistive. Okay, so this is one example. I am going to explain about discharging, right, initially. So if you see this circuit, there is a capacitor, there is a switch, there is a load, you can say 1 ohm resistor. Suppose this capacitor is charged to 9 volts, right, and at time t equal to 0 initial, the switch is connected to a 1 ohm resistor. The discharge time is regulated by the resistance. Okay, the initial current will be I, that is by Ohm's law, I equal to V by R, that is at t equal to 0. We have a voltage that is 9 volts, and the resistance we are using is 1 ohm. So you will get 9 amperes. For a moment, let's assume that the rate of discharge is constant, that is, it will follow a linear discharge curve over time. If you calculate the time at this rate, we will get t equal to